Hello, and welcome back to Hair Tech Live. Today I'm joined by my friend Sammy. Hi, Sammy, how are you?
Hi, Kat. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's lovely to have you on. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks very much for the invite. I'm very excited. I've loved listening to the other episodes.
Oh, no, that's really good to hear. Thank you. And it's really exciting now to be starting to talk to guests like outside of NetSupport, because there's so many women like yourself working in tech or in ed tech and things, and just different roles, different stories. So I'm looking forward to diving into yours today. So do you mind first of all just introducing yourself and telling us what your role is, please?
Yeah, so my name's Sammy White. I am a learning lead, which probably means nothing, but it's kind of
There's nothing and everything, I guess.
yeah. So I work at an ed tech company called Glean, and what we do is we support higher education market students, and my role is to make sure that learning goes from the design of the product and what we build all the way through to how we talk about the product in the market as well. So I sit across product teams. I'm based in the product function, and we review features and roadmaps and take decisions based on what is good for learning, and then that goes all the way through to how we message that and send that out to the market as well. So yeah, that's pretty much my job in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, and I guess it fits with kind of Glean's vision, which is obviously all about like learning and the learners. So that's why you have that role to keep learning at the heart across the board, I guess.
Yeah, we recognise that it's very easy to be in edtech now and to offer a solution, but actually the solution is generally just a tool. So it might be like a sticking plaster over what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And I think there's a real shift in edtech anyway now to be more evidence informed, to have more evidence guided approaches, and Glean are sort of trying to thread that all the way through the product. And we have like guiding learning principles and things like that. So we have like our own take on learning and what's good for students. And that's really what helps us stand out in the market as well, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what about who you are outside of work? Because I always think it's quite interesting to talk to my guests about kind of things that they like to do, or just, kind of who they are outside of their job.
Well, I'm a mum.
Yes.
So all my social life is basically being a taxi service. Football clubs.
Without the pay as well.
Yeah, without the pay. Football clubs, performing arts clubs. My outside work life is pretty much running around after my kids. If I do get any time to myself, I am a huge fan of going to a beauty salon for a really long period and not speaking to anybody. So
That sounds very good.
had my nails done last night, had my brows done last night. I was there for a little while. I'm going to another one for a Japanese head spa at the weekend.
Oh, that sounds so good.
I am very much a self-care person, is my favourite hobby.
I love that. And I guess, well, you're busy at work. Obviously, you're busy being a mum, so it makes sense that in that time you got to yourself, you just want to be pampered. So
Yeah,
I think
pretty
that's
much.
fair. And the brows look great, by the way. So.
Thank you.
No, that's really lovely. So how did you get into your role at Glean? Like, what was the,
So if we take it all the way back, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, because you've kind of had like a whole experience in education and stuff before this. So it's been a big build up, I guess, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. About 10 years ago, I came back from maternity leave, and I tried to plug my memory stick in to get my lesson plans for year 10's algebra.
Yeah.
And they'd covered the USB port on the desktop. And I was like, oh, how do I get my lesson plans? And the level of training I got was, oh, it's all on Google. And I was like, as in Google? And they were like, yeah, it's on Google. And so I literally typed into Google, where are my lesson plans?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know a cloud drive existed. Like, that wasn't a thing. So I kind of became really determined to learn this thing called cloud drives and Google and Workspace and things like that, and just became like a Google champion and innovator, and did all the accreditations at the organization I worked at. We went through lockdown, and we came back from lockdown, and I just decided that education probably wasn't ready for what I wanted to do with technology. People were wanting to return back to some things that I didn't feel were the right things for students, were preparing students. So I took the decision to leave. I went to work for some edtech providers offering training to schools and colleges. So I kind of went from a user to a trainer in the tech space. And then I went to work at a company called TextHelp, supporting them with sort of sales enablement, using teaching and learning expertise to help them create stories for the market and speak to the market. They're an edtech assistive tech provider, and actually I was a client of theirs.
Oh, interesting. Is that kind of how you knew of the company initially?
Yeah, so I knew of the company, and when the job came up, I knew what they stood for, and I was like, oh, actually, I could. If we think back to the example of, I literally had training of you just Google it. I was like, well, actually, I could probably have a bigger impact if I go work for this company, because I could support more teachers and help them get the most out of this tech. So I went and did that, and I became really fascinated with how tech works and how different functions come together, and sort of looked at agile methodologies over there, and I was like, oh, that seems interesting. And then I came to work at Glean, and haven't really looked back. Started as the learning evangelist, now the learning lead, and I work on special projects, but I work agile now. I work with the product squads. I work with the engineering teams. So I'm sort of scratching that itch of getting all that tech industry experience I really wanted.
Oh, that's really cool. I just love how interested you are in tech and just how curious you are about how it all works. I think that's really cool, and that probably just feed into it a lot, and your skills within it. So talk to me a little about then, what was the transition like for you going from being an educator to working in ed tech?
I think there was a couple of moments where I was like, I'm not sure this is for me. And I think that probably comes back to this agile methodology in a nutshell, because when you work in agile, you have your tasks, you have your roadmap, you all report in, you do a daily stand-up, you report on your work, you move things along in like a Kanban board style.
I remember that from my product manager days. It was very agile.
Very agile. And then you think to education, well, you write a scheme of work for the year, then you'll write a unit of work for half term, maybe a term, and you'll maybe have a team meeting once the term, maybe, about what it is that you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have this longer lead into things, and it's not very fast paced. If someone came to you as a teacher and said, oh, you need to change the way you're teaching this topic, it wouldn't happen for a really long period of time. There would be so much thinking and process around it. And I'm not saying one way is right and one way is wrong.
It's just different,
It's different. And going from that slower pace in education into tech, where now it goes on the Kanban board, it gets ranked in priority, and as soon as it's picked up, it says, how long are we estimating this to take? 2 to 3 weeks. Right, we'll stop everything else, we'll do this for 2 to 3 weeks, or we'll stop everything, we'll do this for 2 to 3 days, whatever the estimate is. And that was the biggest challenge for me, was moving from this, oh, I really think we should sit and think about this, to no, let's go get something done, see what happens. Learn from it and then try again. And I guess that's the difference. Obviously, you can't do that in education, because you can't just try things on.
No.
Be like, oh, that didn't work.
It's all right.
That didn't work. Never mind. Whereas in tech, you can very much do that. You can build something. You can be like, okay, let's get this out there. All right, that didn't work. Let's change it and let's go out again. And I think that was the hardest bit for me.
Yeah, it's very different, the processes and stuff in general, definitely. Yeah. No, interesting. Was there anything, obviously I know you said that was not necessarily good or bad, but it was hard for you. Was there anything that surprised you, like in a good way, when you transitioned, would you say?
I think the fact that if you are a teacher, you're very good at telling stories. Because you generally have to keep 30 people listening to you for an hour.
It's true.
Multiple times a day, and you get a new audience. Like, I think teachers would be excellent at stand-up a lot of the time, because you will constantly have a new audience as a teacher. And I think what surprised me was how easy it was to sort of use those skills of how do you keep people engaged in your message when you're moving into text. I'm talking about learning and learning science, and I might be talking about cognitive load theory, which is very dull and very dry sometimes, and it can be very theory heavy. But actually, because I've been a teacher, I kind of know how to make it interesting and engaging for about that 40-minute period to help people come along with the story. And I know how to build it so that it's going to be a bit more engaging. I'm going to build in some active discussions. And then when I come to speak to, I don't know, an engineering squad about why I think we should pivot on a decision because of cognitive load theory, they've got that background knowledge around it, and I've been able to articulate it well. So probably the storytelling skill of being a teacher, I think, came across quite easily when I transitioned.
And I guess being able to distill down some of that like quite complex information sometimes and make it digestible, understandable. What's your experience been like working in tech? Talk to me about some of the good bits and the not so good bits. What have been the benefits and the challenges?
Well, I absolutely love the speed of it. I love let's quickly get something done. Let's see what happens and we'll change and we'll adapt. And that, that resilience that people have in tech, they're not precious about their ideas, okay, it didn't work, let's try again. And sometimes some ideas don't actually get built. So I really enjoy when we just put things testing on a testing platform, and we'll have a hypothesis that we think this is a really good idea, and then we'll test it and it'll come back and be like, oh no, the market doesn't want that. And I really like that as well, because you're like, oh, okay. I think that's been really good for me because I generally do take things quite personally. So I'll be like, oh no, that was a really good idea. Oh no. But now I'm like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, you've become more resilient as well.
Yeah, I've become more resilient as well. So I really love that speed of things. I really love how keen everyone is to hear from the customer. Like I've never worked anywhere where people are sort of not interested in what the customers have.
That's a good point.
Everyone who works in tech is really interested in what customers have to say. And I say this to my friends all the time, like when they say, oh, this app's so frustrating, or oh, I wish it'd do this, or my phone's so stupid because it goes this way around and I wanted it to go this way around. And I say to my friends all the time, like, just hit the little button on the app or the phone and be like, give them feedback. They will really value this. They'll really, really value this. And I had it with my TV provider recently, and I kept pressing a button on the remote and it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And so I've filled in some feedback for them, and then their user experience team rang me up and they were like, tell us more about what you were expecting that button to do. And I was like, well, it's because I really wanted it to do this and it's not doing this. And they were like, we have never thought of it that way around. That's incredible. We're going to go away and think about that. And I think everyone in tech has that thirst for learning from customers. I really love that passion for customers that comes from working in tech. Things that don't work as well in tech is, I think, it's probably a personal thing, but I think being a working mum in tech is a little bit challenging, or a working parent in tech. Because these things do happen so quickly, because these changes happen quite rapidly and decisions change, stuff like that. There's quite a few of us who work part-time, and we're always having to sort of catch each other up.
You kind of missed out on some of the conversations.
And you miss out on a few bits and pieces, and it's just an extra thing you have to do to catch up. I'm not sure I think we're getting a lot better generally with like supporting people who need to work part-time for care and responsibilities, or whatever reason they need to work part-time. I've worked part-time for long before I became a parent, so it's not a new problem, and it's not a techie problem. It's just how does tech balance that speed and accelerated growth element that happens in tech with supporting those who might not be in the business at the working hours. And I think this is probably a thing that's going to come out more and more as people are allowed to work more flexibly, like condensed weeks and 4-day weeks and things like that are becoming more of the trend. How are we going to not slow down and still support people to work when they want to work? And I think it's not something that's bad about tech. It's just something that I wish everyone was a little bit more engaged with.
That makes sense. And I guess that would feed into as well, coming back from leave and things like that, because it is so fast paced and things can change so quickly in tech, because how you then catch up with everything that's happened while you've been off, and how they get you up to speed.
Came back to work. Someone came back to work a couple of weeks ago, and they'd had an extended period of leave, and they were like, "Oh, I had 977 emails." We don't
Yeah,
use
I mean,
email.
that's just yeah.
So we use Slack. So
Mm.
that's 977 things that you weren't expecting to get
Yeah.
because
Yeah, that's
because
scary.
everything had already happened in this. I didn't ask how many Slack messages they had, but
No.
we were like, that's a lot. That is a lot. And
Mm.
for me, like I finished work at my part-time hours yesterday and I came back in
Mm.
today to 36 emails. And again, we don't use
Mm.
email. So it's things that are like an extra on top of the stuff
Yeah, everything else.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always that
Yeah.
I'm gonna catch up a little bit.
Yeah, that is difficult. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I don't think anyone's kind of talked about that, but I think it is something to definitely consider with how fast-paced it can be in tech, for sure. What has been some of your favourite achievements to date?
Well, in 2023, I won a Tech Women 100 award.
Yay!
So did
Congrats.
you. And I think the best part about doing that was that we did it together. And
It
we
was
did
so nice to do it together. It made it so much more special.
we did everything together, like from getting
Yeah.
nominated to like going to the event and to
Yeah.
celebrating, and that was just, and then we went to the recent meetup as well together.
Yeah, and the community is just so lovely, isn't it? So it's so
Yeah,
nice to be part of that.
yeah. So I think big achievement. I think that was a big achievement, and I'm sure it was for
Definitely.
you as well. But I think that was a real big moment, and what I felt big about that was that it was tech and not ed tech, and
Mm,
I've been in ed tech
yes.
pretty much consistently, and
Mm,
very easy to ed tech's a very, very small world still.
yeah, kind of gets forgotten about a little bit in the bigger tech picture sometimes.
Yeah, and it was just nice to see you, Kate and me sort of coming out of that ed tech into that wider
Mm,
as well.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a very, very lovely thing. In terms of what we've built at work, around the same time, we built a feature of quizzing using artificial intelligence, and
Oh, wow.
it was probably the first time I'd really got to grips with how you build a feature.
Mm,
I didn't do any of the building, but how a squad pulls together to get something out, and I
yeah.
was there to consult on how do we create a quiz that's good for learning,
Mm,
not just a knowledge check. Like it has feedback built in, because we know there's a difference
mhm.
between delayed and instant feedback in quizzing. And so I was able to use all my teacher knowledge of how we build a good quiz and help
I
build
love that.
everybody good
Mm,
quizzes. And
yeah.
so those two things happened at the same time. Since then, we've built lots of other things at work that I've helped with.
Mm,
That sort of stands out as like a real moment when the two sort of the actual day to day sort of matched
mm.
the award at the same time, I think.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love that. That's really cool. And I do get what you mean with the quizzing. Sometimes quizzing can be for the sake of quizzing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you do have to think so much with features and things, don't you? That they are really kind of, yeah, giving their all. So that's really cool. I love that. What would be your advice for someone that was interested in a role like yours?
So I talk about this a lot. I talk about how a subject expert for your tech business is pretty much essential. So if you were in health
Mm,
tech, someone like me would be a healthcare professional sort of working
yeah.
through your tech product
Mm,
to help you understand the market better. Someone in fintech would be someone from the financial world working through the business.
mm,
In ed tech, someone from education or a teacher working through
yeah.
the product as well, because I think that's what helps you know what to build instinctively,
Mm,
because you've got someone on hand to be like, we're thinking about building this. What, in your experience, what do you think?
mm,
The person who is the subject expert, be it fintech, health tech, or ed tech, can help train teams to know what to build, but also they're probably really connected to your customers in different
mm,
ways and can get
yeah.
completely different levels of insight. And
Mm, very
sometimes we
true.
look at usage data. Well, we look at usage data a lot, but sometimes we look at it really, really closely, and
Mm,
we'll go, well, why have they done that? And your subject expert is the person that can go, well, the reason they're doing that, the hypothesis might be this and this. And if you don't have someone who's had that lived experience of using your product or working in your sector or working in your market, I think you're going to really miss that. So I'd really encourage anyone who is a subject expert to speak to the tech companies and be like, right, I'm thinking about making a move to tech. How could I do that? And there's so many courses out there at the moment that are fully, we've talked about this a few times, that are fully funded to get people into tech. Like I've just done a women in tech leadership course for 13 weeks. It was amazing, really wonderful. I was working with someone who was in like, I don't even know the industry of tech, but it's like roads. So it's like infrastructure, maybe. I don't know. But she was great. Cool. She was great to get to know. There was a couple of people from education. There was someone from a utility company. There was someone from local museums. And it was all about how we could be women in tech leadership. So advice would be to look for what is available of fully funded courses, certainly in England and Wales. There's absolutely loads at the moment about transitioning to tech. There's free courses at the moment in my area on learning about user experience design. And I think,
interesting. Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really understand outside of like product, how important good UX is. It's probably one of the most exciting things you could work on in tech. So there's lots of roles that you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know if those roles exist or if they appeal, but maybe doing like a free course that you could do alongside your current role might help you just understand a little bit more and think about how could you make that transition.
Yeah, that's really good advice, and especially like we said about subject experts as well, because it does make a difference. I think there are a lot more companies that are looking specifically for subject experts.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at your journey in tech as well, that was kind of what made the difference for you, was like you were the subject expert coming in.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted a teacher to come in because it was, it's educational products, so they wanted more. And we've got a couple other people quite a few people within that have worked in education for that reason, because it does make a difference when you've got people that understand the challenges and experiences of the customers that you're trying to reach. For sure. So there's lots of, like you said, lots of free courses, which is a really good place to start as well. So my last question really is just, what change do you want to see in the tech industry, and how do we get there?
So one of the things I learned on my course of Women in Tech Leadership was that there's a lot of women who have imposter syndrome, and sometimes it doesn't even recognize as imposter syndrome, or a lot of the things we talked about were how do you become a leader true to your values whilst working in a certain sector or a certain industry. And a lot of the participants were experiencing a conflict of where they were working and their values, and how that feels challenging. So the change that I want to see is less of that, because I want to see people feeling confident, capable, and getting out there. Female, male, non-binary, however you choose to identify. I think life's too short to be sat thinking, this isn't my place, or I'm not meant to be doing this, or there should be someone else who could do this, or who else could do this instead of me. I think what I'd really love to see is people be more empowered to be more directive about their future. I think we get maybe a bit British and a bit shy about success, and a bit shy about how do we put ourselves forward for things. The change that I want to see is a big culture change, especially for underrepresented groups, to be like, no, I'm here and this is what I'm here to do. And that might be more founders getting out the blocks, that might be people starting their own journey, that might be people transitioning, but I really want to see more confident people from underrepresented groups leading the change in the tech industry. And I know that's something Vanessa Vallerly's spoken to us about as well.
Definitely.
100, and she's great for that and all the DEI initiatives. And I really want to see a change where it's not just DEI, it's actually how we live and breathe everything that we do. And I think we have got a long way to go on that, but more vocal underrepresented groups is what I want to see.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's brilliant. I want to see that too. Well, thank you, Sammy. It's been such a pleasure having you on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great to chat.